Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, family and friends. I would like to say thank you to everyone who reached out with their condolences and expressed their love and admiration for Hector. Thank you for the flowers, fruit baskets, food. For some reason, everybody wanted to feed me. And to all who texted me asking if I was okay or if I needed anything. I would like to especially thank Michael Klausman, CBS Vice President of Television City, whose unwavering friendship for over 50 years and whose generosity to give of his valuable time and resources never hesitates to extend help whenever and however he can. It's because of him that we are privileged to hold this celebration of Hector's life here at CBS TV City, and to Michael Scarnecchia, CBS Vice President, Stage Operations, for his assistance and guidance. Thank you to Bowie Kober of Kober Post, who once again so generously donated editing facilities and gave of his valuable time in editing the video, which we will watch today. To Andrea Joel, set decorator, who I worked with back in the day on The Young and the Restless, and is a dear, dear friend who did not hesitate in stepping in to help alongside James Yarnell, production designer, who focused on every detail and delivered perfection. To John Aroesti, Sean Woodside, Zach Hawley, Ron Drews, Mitch Clark, Johnny Lord, and to all of our friends who gave of their time and resources is testament of their love and friendship for Hector and extended that love and friendship to me and my family. Saying thank you doesn't seem like enough, but please know that it comes from the heart. Lastly, I would like to acknowledge and express my love and gratitude to two amazing friends, Dave Levison and Brian Reason. Dave has been a friend since Hector and I were married and has known Hector even longer. Dave, Hector always said you were an excellent cameraman and even better photographer. Thank you for documenting so many of the behind the scenes of Hector's work, for your days and hours of compiling all the material and helping in editing today's video. Brian, in just a few years, I have come to know you as the friend that just keeps on giving. It was your hope that Hector would want to be celebrated because of who he was and how much he was loved and respected. And it was your vision and dedication that this event has come to fruition. You were by my side during Hector's last days, and you continue to be that special guy friend who is more family than friend. It is only fitting that Hector and I have come full circle. It was the summer of 1973, and I was working here at TV City in the scheduling department. I was in charge of assigning all the technical stage personnel to the various shows that were being taped in the 4 stages at TV City. The manager of studio technicians called to tell me he was going to introduce me to 3 new hires. One of those hires was Hector. When I was introduced to Hector, I wish I could say it was love at first sight, but it was quite the opposite. After the new hires left the office, the other women who worked in the office could not stop talking about how good-looking Hector was. My reaction was, oh, please. That guy looks like he's so full of himself. When the time came to schedule Hector on shows as a cameraman and not as a utility guy, I remember thinking, this Latino guy better be good at camera and not make my people look bad. Well, it didn't take long before all the directors and producers on all the big shows and sitcoms that were being taped here at TV City were insisting Hector be assigned to their shows. He credits his tenure here at CBS as the catapult to his successful and much decorated career as a cameraman. He loved the challenge of operating the camera, whether on a pedestal, handheld, crane, Steadicam, or helicopter. He loved the work and loved working with the people he worked with. Hector enjoyed his time off by going on motorcycle rides, either with his buddies or with other couples. So many of our vacations spent on the bike were some of the best trips we had. He also enjoyed doing big projects around the house, like remodeling our kitchen, which he and his brother, Bill, took the old kitchen down to the studs, or building the patio overhang, which he recruited our son Dana and our nephews Billy and Sean to help. Oftentimes, it was a family project, whether the other members of the family liked it or not. He also loved music, especially oldies. And during COVID lockdown, he swore he was going to teach himself to play guitar. Some days, Hector just wanted to sit in the backyard, especially on the deck he built with the fire pit, put his feet up, light up a cigar, and drink amaretto. After a day's work of building, Hector and Bill would sit out there for hours, smoking, drinking, and just talking. So after 47 years of marriage, he surpassed all my expectations of the type of man he was. He was a family man. Family was so important to him. He was Pops to Dana. He was Tío, Uncle Hector. He was Primo, cousin. He was my sister's fix-it man. He was a brother. He was Grandpa, and he was my Hickey.
I miss my dad, or as I called him, Pops. I miss hearing his voice greeting me, Dusky, coming from the same spot in the couch where he always sat. He nicknamed me Dusky when I was a little boy, and when I'd ask over the years, he could never remember why or how he came up with the name, but it stuck. It wouldn't surprise me if he blurted it out thinking he was actually saying my name. He wasn't too good with names. If it wasn't Dusky, he was calling me Billy, his brother's name. I'm his only child, so I always gave him shit for getting it confused. He would always tell the story about how he met Sting for the first time and thought his name was Stink instead. For Christmas, when family was over, he would play Santa and hand out gifts, struggling to read the names of his own family, forgetting who belonged with who or the names of all the grandkids, even though every year they obviously never changed. I'm pretty sure he would exaggerate just a bit because he knew we got a kick out of his mistakes and mispronunciations. My favorite show growing up was I Love Lucy, which should be no surprise seeing as I thought my dad was Ricky Ricardo, with his Spanglish accent and vocabulary. I played the piano since I was young, and I'm pretty sure my dad would take credit for my musical abilities. He would love to listen to me play, and then would want to play along with me with the only 4 chords he knew, which happened to be the bass line to Heart and Soul. For most of his life, he only knew 4 chords on the guitar as well. We would love to joke about my mom's lack of rhythm and pitch. One of my favorite things was watching my dad try to teach my mom how to dance. Most of the time, it would end in laughter, mostly by my dad and I. I'll always cherish memories of him taking me to the batting cages or going over to the local school to play basketball with me. We'd go get chicken burritos and large orange bangs from El Pollo Loco, and I thought it was such a treat. The 3 of us would play board games, specifically Clue, and he would love to claim he knew who the killer was before we'd even start, or at least a couple moves in saying he wanted to make his grand accusation. In between those times, he spent countless days and hours working with many of the people in this room today. I remember going to shows, introducing me to many of you for the first time as a little boy. I was fortunate enough to meet many of my idols and favorite celebrities because of my dad and him being so good at what he did. He worked on shows like the David Copperfield specials. I would be interested in the magic tricks, but he would never reveal David's secrets. From the Grammys, MTV specials, the Super Bowl, and plenty more, he managed to work all the cool shows. He'd get me autographs on show rundowns whenever he could. He would come home from trips or long days at work and never hesitate to tell my mom and I his day, especially if something interesting happened. He would jump at the chance to tell the story, whether he could remember if he told you before or not. I know because my family and I have heard so many of the same stories so many times. If you ever mention the LA Fair, amusement parks, or any type of kids slides, he would immediately bring up the time my mom went careening into me and a couple other kids, going down a slide on a potato sack, sending me and herself to first aid. I'm gonna miss my dad, always being there for me. Whether meeting me in New Orleans months after Hurricane Katrina to clean out my apartment, coming to take care of me after I had ulcers in my eyes and couldn't see for 2 weeks, or the countless times I've had car trouble in the rain or late at night, my dad exemplified how selfless a father can be. I wish he had had more time. More time to watch his granddaughters grow up, pick them up from school, watch them play soccer, and for them to listen to all of his stories. My comfort now comes from knowing I have plenty to share with them about their amazing grandfather. Thank you to everyone who has reached out. I truly appreciate your love and support. Thank you to my Uncle Billy, who has always been there for the three of us, no matter how big or small the project. You made working with my dad less stressful, and I knew he wouldn't yell at me as much when you were there. You've always made us laugh, and I'm so grateful to have you in my life. To my tia Candy, thank you for helping my mom take care of my dad at the end. You spent countless hours cooking, cleaning, shopping for groceries, getting and giving medicines, and just making sure both my mom and dad were as comfortable and relaxed as they could be. You were a lifesaver for my mom. Your physical and emotional support goes beyond words can explain. Thank you to all his friends, especially Brian, Dave, Russell, Adam, Eastwood, Easter, Randy, Joffrey, Dean, Malcolm, and our neighbor Jim, who have been by his side all these years, having to listen to my dad's stories and jokes at work, and even sitting through dinners on your own free time and free will. I now have the pleasure of calling you my friends as well. He's not here today, but I have a very special thanks to another Billy in my dad's life. Thank you to Bill Philbin, my other dad, as we've joked. I remember being excited when he said you would be visiting or we'd go down to San Pedro to see you and Jeannie. You chased me around with my Nerf guns, and your inappropriate, politically incorrect humor always made me laugh. To this day, you are one of the only people, if not the only person, who calls me Dusky that is not my actual family. You are one of his best friends, and I hope we never lose touch. You'll always be a part of my family. Over the past month, I've been asked about his life by people who didn't know my dad. When I tell them about his job and his accolades, they're always so amazed, and as they should be. He was an amazing man and father. I miss him every day, but I'm grateful for the 40 years I got to spend with him. I'm grateful he's no longer in pain. I hope he gets to see the impact he had on all of our lives. There's a line from a Third Eye Blind song that says, quote, "And the four right chords can make me cry." Take care, rest easy, and watch over your granddaughters. I love you, Pops.
Kind of hard acts to follow. And I'm blind, so. I was going to start out with a joke, but it seems horribly inappropriate, and it's kind of a lame joke anyway. But I'll tell you a quick little story, because it happened a bunch of times to my wife and I. We would be out to dinner with people, or just talking with people who were in the industry. And the first time it happened, I thought it was kind of weird, but through conversation, this couple, Nancy had mentioned that my brother worked in the entertainment industry, and he's like, "Oh, what's your brother do?" I'm like, "He's a cameraman." And he said, "Oh, really? What's his name? Maybe I've worked with him or something." And I said, "His name's Hector Ramirez." And he just sat there quiet, looking at me. And he goes, "Your brother's Hector Ramirez?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he just said, "He's a legend." And I never really believed that. I always, I never thought about him that way. But after seeing this and talking to people, he really was. I'll pick up after my joke now. My name's Bill de la Espriella. I'm Hector's brother. Thanks for being here to honor Hector's life. You may have noticed that Hector and I have different last names. Technically, we're half-brothers, but my siblings and I never used the term half to describe our relationship to each other. Hector was simply my brother. Being here at CBS seems like a fitting place to celebrate Hector's life. As many of you know, or may not know, Hector worked here at CBS early in his career on groundbreaking shows like All in the Family and Maude and many others. But long before Hector worked either at ABC or CBS, he worked at some of the smaller networks. While working at KCOP, he worked on one of my favorite shows that I watched as a child called The Bad Habit Rabbit. Now, that was probably not cutting-edge TV. Oddly enough, neither the show nor Hector won any Emmys for that. But I loved it. For most of my early life, Hector was just my brother, who sounded a lot like, as Dana mentioned, Ricky Ricardo, and who I didn't really interact with very much. He is quite a bit older than me. One time of the year that Hector played a big role in my life was at Christmas, when he was our family's Santa Claus, and he handed out all the presents to everyone who gathered at my mother's house. The rest of the time, Hector was doing his television thing, which I didn't know anything about and wasn't remotely interested in. Kind of regret that part. As I got older, the age gap between Hector and myself didn't seem to be very important, and we found that we had many things in common. Well, not exactly many things, but a few things. We both learned that we enjoyed doing projects around our houses, big projects, little projects, and everything in between. Eventually, we started doing these projects together, which worked out great for both of us. Hector knew electrical work and plumbing, and I knew woodworking and construction. Whatever we didn't know, we just learned together. We bought tools together. We shared. Doing projects together was always a bit of a comedy routine. And for the most part, our families and friends did not understand how we were able to work together. We'd get frustrated with each other, we'd yell at each other, and sometimes we'd get really angry with each other. In the end, we always got the project done, and more. And more importantly, we always remained friends. I love doing these projects with Hector. I learned so much from him, and I like to think that occasionally I taught him a thing or two along the way. Our families enjoyed going on ski trips together, and I have such wonderful memories of those trips to Mammoth and to Colorado. But most of the time, we would just hang out around Hector and Alma's house, drinking coffee, discussing any and every topic under the sun. Hector and I were very, very different people. Hector's politics and mine could not have been more different. The same could be said about our taste in entertainment, except for music, well, with the exception of smooth jazz. Hector and I would always listen to oldies when we were working on projects together. Both of us loved the music from the 50s and the 60s, and we would quiz each other to see who knew which artist was performing the songs we were listening to. Hector was better at the 50s, and I was better at the 60s. It was always fun. In recent years, Hector and I would get together on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon, drink amaretto, and smoke cigars, some very nice cigars, at his house. We would talk about things going on with various parts and members of our extended families. Most of the time we would just laugh, and sometimes we would simply scratch our heads. The best part was when we would talk about our children. Hector was a wonderful father to his and Alma's son, Dana, and he was so proud of his son, who is now a father himself. I think I will miss smoking cigars and drinking amaretto with Hector most of all. I will never be able to do either of these things without thinking of my brother. The most important thing that Hector ever did for me was to try to make me a better person. He didn't always succeed, but he planted seeds that are still growing in my brain and my soul. I will never be able to repay him for that, but I will forever be grateful. Most of you out there know Hector professionally, and I don't need to tell you how good he was at his job. Hector had many Emmy nominations and wins and other awards that only a few people can come close to these accomplishments. Interestingly, I always got the feeling that Hector didn't think the awards were a big deal. He loved the work and he loved the people that he worked with. But the thing that I want people to remember him for was his love of storytelling. Anyone that had a conversation with Hector knows that he had a story for every occasion. Sometimes the best part of the stories wasn't what he said, but the way he told them. Hector was a kind and loving human being who everyone liked and many loved. Hector was generous to a fault, and he would help any friend or family member that needed his help. I don't know if you're here because you're part of the family, or you worked with Hector, or you were just a friend. Just look around, and you see and feel Hector. Lived a life well lived. Hector touched so many lives during the course of his life, and it's likely that he had a positive impact on most of those lives. Each of us here can count ourselves fortunate to have known him. I love my brother, and while I'm sad that we've lost him, I'm happy that he's no longer suffering. I know that our mother, our grandmother, other family members and friends that have passed away have welcomed him to his new gig in heaven. In closing, I want to thank you for allowing me to speak to you today about my brother Hector. I also wanted to mention to all the producers and directors who are in attendance today that I've written a television show based on Hector's life. If any of you are interested in a development deal, please see me later. I can provide you with completed scripts for 15 seasons. I know that I speak for my wife and my children, my brothers and my sister, saying thank you for attending today, and God bless you all.
Wow, what a turnout. First, I just want to say thank you to Alma, Dana, Bill, the whole Ramirez family for allowing to do this, and everybody that has come together to put this together was above and beyond the call of duty on so many levels. And so I just have to mention a few more thank yous. And I want to thank Dave Eastwood, wherever he is, for bringing in Hector's vest, sitting back in the corner, and that is Hector's vest. And he spent 20 years in that vest, and I think the last person in that vest was was Hector. And so thank you, Dave. And Matt Shaw, lighting this room, and all the Local 33 crew, everybody here at CBS, thank you so much. It looks beautiful. Okay. And a few others I just want to mention: Cole Overholzer helping out, and Tristan Policino, and Steve Boldruff, everybody from Apache, Sean, and so on, been mentioned. So thank you. And also Sweetwater, the screen technicians in the back. I just want to say thanks to Tim Pong and Francisco Pina. Okay, I'm going to try not to make this long, because as Hector would say, or as we would say to Hector, is this a long story? So anyway, the only thing I could think about are, I sat at home and I thought about words that describe Hector. And Hector was not only near and dear to my heart, but to everybody in this room and everybody that's watching that isn't here, that might be on the other side of the coast, on East Coast, Nashville, wherever. He touched, as Bill said, and the family said, he's touched so many lives. The first word I want to say is he was kind. He was kind beyond words. He was generous and giving of his time. Whether it was working on projects at my house or someone new in the business showed up, and they would show up at Dancing with the Stars or America's Got Talent, which we did on this stage, and Dancing with the Stars next door. Hector always had time and made the time to speak to everybody. It didn't matter who they were, whether they were younger, older, any question, and he took the time. And I watched him, and I was lucky enough to be witness to that, which was always so beautiful. He was a gentleman, and he was gracious. He had integrity. He always wanted to do things right. Whether it was framing up a shot, whether it was building something at home, he wanted to make sure he had the right tool, the right lighting, or the right camera, whatever is needed. He always wanted to make sure it was right. And he was passionate of his work, and he had a great work ethic. And I think everybody in this room has witnessed that. And of course, as we all know, he was a storyteller. But most of all, he was my friend. And I miss him every day. Someone told me once that you should always leave a party while you're still having fun. And that's what Hector did. I love you, Hector.
You can see how long my speech is going to be. Alma, Bill, Dana. My name is Dave Livingston. My name is Dave Levinson. And my name is Dave Levishon. So for those of you who don't know me, you can go by that. But there's one thing you can always go by, and that's me being Hector's friend. That will never leave me. You can call me what you want, but the main thing is you can call me Hector's friend. So I met Hector in a funny way. I don't know, I've told this story to some people. I didn't know Hector, and like in 1970, I get a call from Dean Hall, who was probably one of the first freelance guy in LA. There were like 2 or 3 guys. And he says, I got somebody I want you to talk to on the phone. I said, okay. I was working at KTLA at the time. And Hector gets on the phone, and we have a chat, and he tells me, he worked at the Spanish station and what his little experience was, and he just wanted to move on. And since I was at KTLA, if I could help him out, I said, sure, anytime. So time goes by. I still speak to Hector on the phone. And everybody knows that I'm very mechanical. I can't put a screw in the wall, but anyway. So before cable, before satellite, Gloria and I are living in our first house in Northridge. I got it on the VA loan. I got this house, and I'm going up on the roof, and I'm going to put up an antenna for my TV. And it was a hot summer day. And somehow something happened where I fell off the roof while putting up this antenna, and I broke my elbow. So now you can see, right? So now I go, oh God, I can't go to work. There's definitely no go to work. And I call up KTLA and speak to Hector Heighton, Bobby Heighton's dad at the time. He was in charge of hiring people. I go, Hector, I can't come in. I know we got shows to do, and I just can't. I broke my elbow, blah, blah, blah. And Hector goes, well, God damn it. Who can you get? Can you get somebody to come in and take your place? I said, I got the perfect guy. I've never met Hector. I said, he'll call you right away. He'll be there tomorrow. His name is Hector Ramirez. I've known him for months. I know he can do the job. He'll be there tomorrow. Hector shows up, gets hired at KTLA, and he starts working at KTLA. So a few weeks later, after I kind of heal and I can go back to work, I go back to KTLA, and Hector's coming in, and I see this Buick Riviera, big car, Buick Riviera, green and black Buick Riviera, and pulls into the parking lot, and out comes Hector. I go, hi, Hector, nice to meet you, great to see you, I'm glad you took over, I got the job, and so on and so forth. He says, oh, it's just small talk. I said, that's a nice car. He says, yeah, I won it in a raffle. I said, you won it in a raffle? He said, yeah, I got it in a raffle. I said, that's great. And you know what? We all had a raffle, and we all won Hector. And I'm going to miss him. So, normally I'm in the back of the house at work in this stack, and I'm looking this way onto the stage. And I see Eastwood, and I see Easter, and I see Rob Palmer, and I see Bill Philbin, and I see Hector. But now, one of them's gone, my friend Hector, who I'm really going to miss. I'm going to miss him in the front, but he's always going to be in my heart, my friend Hector. So, that's what I want to say on behalf of my wife, Gloria, my son Derek, my daughter Lisa, who couldn't be here, she's at the SAG Awards, and her husband Alex. We're all going to miss Hector, and that's my story. Thank you, Alma, Dana, Bill. Okay, we're going to move on, but before we do, last night there was an award show, and I was watching, I was streaming it, and a fella won the award that Hector was the first one to receive, the SOC, the Lifetime Achievement Award. And when this fellow got up to make his speech and accept the award, he mentioned that he's accepting it on behalf of Hector. And I want to thank Charlie Hundley. Charlie, where are you? That was sweet of you, Charlie. Charlie was like the third one to get it. So, yeah, thank you, Charlie. Okay, so now we're going to go into a little, now we're going to go into a little speech, and I'd like to present Mr. Louis J. Horvitz. I have a little story to tell before, Lou, if you don't mind. Lou was my first camera utility person. At a place called Hollywood Video Center in 1969. And Rocco was here. Lou was my camera utility, but he's doing okay now. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Louis J. Horvitz.
Thank you. It's good to be here and see so many familiar faces. Kind of losing my voice. I was fortunate enough to present Hector with the first Society of Camera Operators Life Achievement Award on their 40th anniversary, the first recognition of television operators by the film community, and long overdue. And Hector was the first one, Dave is the second, Charlie Huntley, congratulations. Give him a big round of applause because it's a big award. When I came out of UCLA in 1970, I went to work at NBC Burbank as a summer relief cameraman. I wasn't pulling cable, Dave. And when I was laid off, I became part of the very first freelance group of the original gang who made up the history of the freelance world of cinematography as we know it today, and that was over 50 years ago. We were working at Hollywood Video Center, Videotape Enterprises, Hughes Sports Network, the local TV stations, KTLA, KCLP, and KTTV. We were shooting the Lakers and the Dodgers, the Angels, the Athletics, the Steve Allen Show, Merv Griffin, Stand Up and Cheer, Operation Entertainment during the Vietnam War, all of the programs covered by the three major networks that they didn't do, we ended up doing. The original group of guys, the OGs, they were Ken Lampkin, Parker Rowe, Bob Hatfield, Gary Stanton, Weber Hall, John Poliak, Paul Piscano, Hank Geving, Lou Adams, or Lou 1, and me. I was Lou 2. Later, it was to be Lou A and Louis J, and that's how I got Louis J. And tagging on to this original group and brought into the fold by two more originals, Dave Levison and Dean Hall, was our wonderful brother, Hector Ramirez. And what an exciting addition he made. I can only say God bless the beginning, and God bless this incredible fraternity of players in the room, and what teams we all made up, and what history we shared. How fortunate for all of us. And that's a long way around to get to Hector Ramirez. I believe, personally, Hector has to be the avatar who bridges the past to the present and to the future. For many of you in this room who worked all those years in the trenches with the Great One and will continue to carry on his legacy, I leave you with these thoughts. Please cherish those fortunate hours with him. Remember him on a daily basis. Keep him in your heart. Carry along his stories and his laughter and his wild times as you trudge the happy road of destiny. A better friend you will never have. A kinder man you will never know. A stronger ally will be hard to find. Hector will forever remain a man of grace in a sometimes graceless age. He will be our avatar. I will miss this man, and I will remember him always. To one of the original gang, God bless you, Hector. Adios, mi amigo. Adios.
Thank you, Louis. Next, we have a video message from David Copperfield, whom he worked for, as we all know, for years and years on all of his specials, along with a lot of people in this room. So let's take a look.
Hector was amazing, a magician with a camera. We worked for decades together and did a lot of great things. So skilled, a real artist, and a really great guy. We're gonna miss him.
Okay, and now we're going to hear from another camera operator from Nashville, Mike Brees.
Here's what I remember about Hector. I remember him coming to Nashville to shoot the Country Music Awards, and I'm maybe 21 years old, and I mean, he was already a Hollywood legend back then, and here he is talking to me, which blows me away for one thing, and he's giving me tips on what I should be doing, and you know, I'm just a kid. I just started, and getting to shoot the Country Music Awards for the first time, so I'll never forget that, and I'm still grateful for the wisdom that he shared with me, and now I'm trying to do that same thing to the younger guys that are coming up in the business. So anyway, I'm forever grateful for that, Hector.
Okay, and now we're going to present a video of Hector's life and what a life it's been. We're going to miss him. But anyway, here's the video. So if you could roll the video of Hector, please.
get it?
You're great.
Stars
I thought you always knew how to play guitar. I thought you did.
I'll hold on and I'll pray to keep your precious love. All of your might in the still of the night. In the still of the night. So before the light show me again with all of your might in the still of the night. In the still of the night. In the still of the night. Yes, it will. Yes, it will. Look, I'm just going to go up here, stop, and then I'm just going to hang on to that.
We're gonna go under. I just know it.
Look, here it is.
Don't fall back.
Here, a little more.
Just don't fall back.
Yo sé que no vendrás, por eso ya tanto la olvido. Dejar un nuevo amor, tanto mejor, ay como el mío. Dejar y la vive, ay en este mundo de tristeza. Dejar y la vive, ay mi manera. Yo quiero ser, hay nada más, prefiero y recordar un nuevo amor, tanto mejor. Quisiera olvidar tanto lo dejó, quisiera vivir, hay nada más, oh sí, my way. Yo sé que no vendrás, por eso ya tanto la olvido. Dejar un nuevo amor, tanto mejor, ay como el mío. Dejar y la vive, ay en este mundo. Friday morning, Ontario.
That's right.
The saga begins.
This will be the allergy Harley ride. On his face is a giant car wash. I gotta go.
Hey. Quemada, New Mexico. 7,000 feet. It looks sunny. It looks bright. But we're freezing our butts off. Here are the girls.
Yes, Hector.
Yeah. The girls are freezing. They got the leathers on.
We just had our hair
Uh,
done. Yeah.
This
This is
is-
our trip due. Actually, we're looking pretty good, right? We haven't yet to wait till the end of the day. I know. I got a little curl left.
There's not much, but it's all we can do. Jesus, I finally got you, sir. Excuse me. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sorry. Where's Fatso? Where is Fatso? Wave, Fatso! What a jerk. Come down, my little friend. You and I can communicate. We can communicate and we can eat once again, like we ate this guy right here. Skinny little bastard. These two fruit flies are next. Oh, yes. In the little room in Lajitas. What a tinker toy this camera is.
Unforgettable, that's what you are. Unforgettable, though near or far. Like a song of love that clings to me, how the thought of you does things to me never before has someone been more unforgettable in every way. And forevermore, that's how you'll stay. That's why, darling, it's incredible that someone so unforgettable thinks that I am unforgettable too. Unforgettable in every way. and forevermore. That's how you stay. That's why, darling, it's incredible that someone so unforgettable thinks that I am unforgettable too.
It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again. Damn, we knew all the plans we flew, good things we've been through, that I've been standing right here talking to you about another path. I know we love to hit the road and laugh, but something told me that it wouldn't last. Had to switch up, look at things different, see the bigger picture. Those were the days, hard work forever pays. Now I see you in a better place. How could we not talk about family when family's all that we got? Everything I went through, you were standing there by my side, and now you're gonna be with me for the last ride. It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again. We've come a long way. Yeah, we've come a long way from where we began. You know where we started. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. I tell you. When I see you again. Yeah, it's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again.
My name is Hector Ramirez. I do pedestal camera, I do handheld camera, and for the last 30 years probably I've done Steadicam. Through the years I worked on both scripted and non-scripted and live TV. I love the work. I have always been passionate about cameras, about doing stuff that is creative. I started on television in 1964-65. My first job was with a Spanish station here in town, KLXA. And then from there, I went to other places. I went to KTLA, I went to ABC, and finally I wound up at CBS, where really I started my career. I started doing all these sitcoms that were at the time the #1 shows in the nation. I started with All in the Family. Then from there, I did The Jeffersons, I did Maude, I did Welcome Back Kotter. So, you know, CBS was the hub of production back in the 70s. So for me, it was like, wow. 3 shows that have meant a lot to me in my career. First, of course, I have to go with All in the Family. It was my learning playground. Number 2 was all the shows that I did with David Copperfield. Difficult shows, creative shows, long hours. But they were very special. And in the last, I think the 11 years in the career that I did with Dancing with the Stars. Today, you know, after so many years of working in this field, I still have a passion for it. Presently, I'm working on things like Americans Got Talent. I do things like the Oscars, the Grammys. Most of my stuff that I do today is live TV. Being a cameraman on live TV gives you the opportunity to not only be creative, but to do something once. With live TV, no matter how much you rehearse, it comes down to that one moment, and your tally light is on. You better be right. There was a time where I was doing the inaugural of Ronald Reagan in Washington, D.C. Frank Sinatra was the host of the whole thing. And they decided that he was going to do a number with Mikhail Baryshnikov. Great. Everybody's ready to go and stuff. At the last minute, at the last second, the director, Dwight Hemian, said to me, Hector, he says, I want to do this all on one camera. And I go, Dwight, I don't even know. I haven't even seen this. We haven't rehearsed this. So he goes, and he said, I know you can do it. And believe me, for 3 or 4 minutes that this number went on, I was a wreck. But it came off without a hitch. And so that was a very special moment for me. This honor that the SOC has given me means a real lot to me. Why? Because it comes from people that do what I do, people that do what I love to do, people that know what it means to do what I do. And so for me, this honor from the SOC, it's a great thing, and I really appreciate it, and I'm very honored.
Smile, though your heart is aching. Smile, even though it's breaking. When there are clouds in the sky, you'll get by if you smile. Through your fear and sorrow, smile, and maybe tomorrow you'll see the sun come shining through.
I think I can say a million times again, that if it hasn't been for our family, of all these camera guys that we have lived together for 40 years or so, and you know, we've been through good times, bad times, hard times. If it hadn't been for this family, and that's the one thing that I have learned, and I think that I said it before, that I have never felt, and I probably would have never felt, if it hadn't been for this, the support and the love and the strength that you guys have given me, all you guys here, all the guys that text me every day from New York, from everywhere. So for me, the lesson is that families, not only your own, but the people that you work with, are very important.
Light up your face with gladness. Smile. Hide every trace of sadness. Although a tear may be ever so near, that's the time you must keep on trying. Smile. What's the use of crying? You find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile. You will find that life's worthwhile if you just smile.
Okay, we're going to roll a little video from one of Hector's very special friends, Mr. Tony Orlando.
Alma, this is Tony Orlando. This is a tough one. Many years separated our friendship and our bonding, but the bonding was never ever separated. Maybe from a phone call to a dinner, but I will never forget you, and I will never ever forget Hector. Handsome, kind, wonderful man. Had so much to do with my career. Camera 1, camera 2, camera 3 brought me to the world. I remember many times Hector would come to me after a sketch or a solo performance and say, "You did good, Tony." It wasn't overwhelming, kind of like, "Hey, you're great." He just winked. "You did good, Tony." He had no idea how deep that went into my heart and soul and gave me confidence every time I walked on that screen. And what a wife. Remember, you walked into that studio and I said, "Oh my God, wait a minute, is that Cher? No, wait a minute." More beautiful, literally gorgeous woman. And he knew it. He was so proud. That's my girl, Alma. From the Orlando family, all of us, Franny, Jenny, and my son John. Our deepest condolences to you. And know that he will be ever, ever, forever in my heart. I am now grateful and forever grateful for knowing Hector. And you, Alma. I hope you feel my heart. And to all the children in the family, that man Hector was one of a kind. May he rest in peace. I know one thing is for sure. He's with the Lord. And I hope that when I go, he picks me up at the airport. God, he'll be missed. All of my condolences, my prayers, and my love to all of you. And to you, Alma, I love you, honey. God bless you. Tony Orlando here saying, I'll see you soon. Someday. In God's eye, it's a wink of an eye when I'll see you, Hector. God bless you all.
This is quite an afternoon we're having, and I've heard so many great things from everybody out here about this is like the best high school reunion ever, and paying tribute to one of the most amazing people in all of our lives and how he's touched our lives. I want to call up a person right now that was, well, there's so many people that Hector touched in his life, but Randy Pulley, if wherever you are, Randy, you got to get up here. There's Randy and Charlie, the two of them. Come on up, Randy. We all insist. And Jason also said to me, you know, coming back from that break, he goes to me, "Now you know what it's like getting everybody back from a 5."
I worked with Hector for probably 15 years. I ran behind him, and my job was to keep him safe. I'll tell you this. It was easy, and it was always fun because Hector loved to laugh, and he loved to make people laugh, and I did nothing but had a good time with him. it's a little tough because when I just really missed working with him, and I really enjoyed working with him. The stories, I've heard them all. And I've heard them multiple times. And I can tell you of a few that he and I had. We were in New York for a show, and it was my first time there. And Hector, being Hector, made sure that I saw everything and went everywhere. So we walked. For 2 days, we walked everywhere. Uptown, downtown. One evening, we were heading back to Midtown, and Hector's like, we should stop and get dinner. So we stopped at this little cafe. It was outdoors on the patio, and we noticed that there was a lot of activity. There was a lot of people out and about going around. And so we were like looking at each other, and he's like, what's going on? I don't know. We finally they place us at our table, and Hector asked the young man, what's going on? And he says, oh, it's gay pride. And Hector's like, oh, okay. So we sit down at our table, and he's looking around. He says, can I hold your hand? I just look at him, I'm like, okay, Hector. Yeah. This is what I had to deal with. But that's what it was always like with Hector. I truly enjoyed working with him. I loved his work ethics. I loved the way he did things. I loved the way he thought about individuals, and I loved the way he spoke to individuals. I will never forget working with him or just hanging with him. And Dana and Alma, and thank you for allowing me the time to have with him. I really appreciated it, and I really loved him. Thank you.
Thanks, Randy. It's beautiful. And now I'd like to call somebody else who been around with Hector for a long time, Mr. Charlie Fernandez. Charlie Fernandez. Charlie Fernandez. Charlie Fernandez.
I wrote it down. I'm not Randy. Hector Ramirez. Where do I begin? Just look around and look at how many lives he's touched. Not sure if I met Hector in 80 or 81. My introduction to Hector was on a show called Guinness's Book of World Record. We were set up and standing around, and I asked Winnikoff what we were waiting for, and he said a couple of camera guys were on their way, and they were close. A short time later, a limo comes driving up, and short time later, a limo comes driving down the street, and Winnikoff says, here they come now. Now I come from a hood, and a limo was for VIPs. I didn't see a whole lot of them where I grew up. I couldn't believe my eyes. The car pulled up, and out comes the biggest smile I ever saw. Hector Ramirez. Right next to him was Dave Levison. I asked Keith, are you freaking kidding me? They bring cameramen to work in limos? I was beside myself. It might not even have been a limo. It was probably just a car service with a nice black car. Who knows? The truth was that they were coming from the airport where they had arrived from another show. I didn't know this world yet. It was introduced to me by Green Crow, Mr. Winikoff and Gene. And, Hector was a strong, confident man, never afraid to say no. He told me how he started working with the Luma crane one day. He said he received a call and was asked if he could operate the Luma crane. And of course, he said yes. He had never worked on one before. The Luma crane was partially operated with a film-style pan and tilt head, known as to many as the wheels. It's like rubbing your head and your belly at the same time. It's a really difficult task. He taught himself at home, he said, by renting a head and placing a flashlight on it. And for a week, he said he would create figure eights on the wall over and over until it became second nature to him. The rest was history, as they say. For years, I watched he and Dave Levison, and let us not forget Mike Beauclair, master the Luma crane on countless David Copperfield specials, countless award shows and specials. Another time, I remember he called me and asked if I knew how to build a jib. He was called to do a job in Memphis to work as a Steadicam op and a jib op. I said no. He set it up so that I can go to camera support and learn. After a few tries, I was on my way. Well, when we got there, I set the jib up the best I could, remember. I looked down and realized I had leftover parts all over it. They were all over the ground. I had no idea where they were belonged. He didn't flinch. In TV, when it's time, it's time. We rolled up to the gates of Graceland, and Hector made that shot even though he had no pan and tilt. Funny now, but not funny then. No one ever found out about that. I had the honor and privilege of working with the very best in the world. Hector was one of the best. Was Hector a people person? Look around. My whole life is right here. From when I started in 1980 till now, and there's just... This crowd doesn't surprise me in the least. I had the privilege of working with Hector for many years as a Steadicam assistant before Randy Pulley. He treated me like an equal. I was always amazed how at times directors and even talent would come and ask him for his advice. Hector knew his craft like no other. He was so much more than a friend to me. He taught me so much, not just about the business, but in life. We spent so much time together over the years that we shared life stories of each other. Hector's life story is an amazing story of survival and achievement of the American dream. Hector was a family man, loved his family. Alma, an incredible wife, Dana, his awesome son, who had Heck very proud, made Heck very proud. I thank God that Heck was able to meet his granddaughters before he was called home. Hector and Alma would have these great Christmas parties, had my wife and I over several times for Christmas parties. We were so honored to be invited. Thank you, Alma, very much. You'll never know how much those special moments meant to us. We will never forget those days. Hector was a great storyteller, as we've all heard. We all know that. Well, when he started telling a story, you knew you were going to be there for a while. There's only one other guy that we all know that could make a story last longer, Hank. I can carry on forever, but I'll just stop by saying, Hector, thank you for being more than a friend. I could literally talk about him to him about anything. Even though many times we didn't see the world the same, but we had open conversations, and I respected everything he had to say, and I always walked away with an open mind. Hector, I love you. Something we don't say enough to one another. I will never forget you. I will always have you right here in my heart. Alma, Dana, I love you guys.
Now we're going to see a video sent by Jeff Margolis, who directed Tony Orlando and Dawn all those years with Hector. So Jeff Margolis.
Hey everybody, it's Jeff from Nashville. I wish I could be there with you all to help celebrate Hector's life. I loved Hector like a brother. I met him in 1974 when I was directing Tony Orlando and Dawn. 74, that's well over 45 years. I think Hector worked on every show that I directed, almost every show that I directed. I loved him dearly and I'll miss him very much. Hector, my good friend, rest in peace.
And now, Tom Bowles. Are you in the house? Yeah, here comes Tom Bowles, who worked with Hector many years ago, like most of us have, but he's going to say a few words. Thanks, Tom.
A few weeks ago, I called up Alma to express my condolences, and in the course of the conversation, I related to her that I'd met Hector some 47 plus years ago. And there was a story that went along with it. It's a short story. But after I told her the story and we finished our conversation, a couple days later, I got a text from her, and she asked me if I could come up here and share that story with all of you. Matter of fact, when I walked in today and saw the people here, I thought, does she really want me to get up here and speak in front of everybody? And she said, yes, the story makes her happy. So Alma, this is for you. In November of 1975, I was working for the director Marty Pacetta, and Marty was in the midst of his run of directing 17 Oscar shows and various big specials. And at the time, we were doing a special for CBS with Telly Savalas. And the show, after location shooting, culminated over here at CBS on a studio shoot. We were on the stage. I can't remember which one now. But after intensive rehearsal, and I say intensive because if you worked with Marty, he was an intensive guy. And we used to say, when he directed, you could hear him directing. Even if you didn't have a headset, you could hear the PL. You could hear the voice leaking out on the PL of Marty directing. So we end up rehearsing for 2.5 days. And on the final day, before the audience comes in, one of the camera operators starts to feel ill. And in those days, we weren't doing 15 cameras or 12 cameras in a studio shoot. We'd maybe have 6, so each camera was vitally important. So we finish the rehearsal and we get to the meal break when the audience is going to be loaded in, and the operator says, sorry, I can't do it. I'm just too ill. I can't proceed. So we're thinking, what are we going to do now? So we're at CBS and we said, is there someone here that can step in? And the people here at CBS said, give us a few minutes. And about 15, 20 minutes later, they walk in with this guy, and it's Hector. And so Hector's taken over by Pacetta, and his AD at the time, I think, was Bob Bowker. And they're going through the rundown with him and trying to give him the crash course in doing the show and knowing all the shots that someone else has rehearsed for 2.5 days. Well, make a long story short, the show went smoothly, and Hector, hit it out of the park. So the next day we're back at the office, and all Pacetta can talk about is this new camera operator that he's discovered over at CBS. He's going on, this guy's amazing. He technically has everything, but beyond that, he has the artistry. The shots that he gave me up, no rehearsal at all, and this guy is just, he says Susie, to his assistant, Susie Rosenberg, find Hector Ramirez. So they get Hector on the phone, and I was witness to the conversation, and he goes on and praises Hector heavily, and he says to him, look, he says, you're an extraordinary talent. He said, I know you have the security of a staff job at CBS, but if you take the chance and go freelance, I promise you I will hire you on every show that I do, and I will put your name out there. And the rest is sort of history. And I have to say, personally, over the years, all the shows that I booked, when I talk to the director and say, who are the ops you want? Who do you want on your show? First sentence, Hector Ramirez was always at the very top of the list. That's my story. It's for you, Alma, and I hope it makes you happy.
Excuse me, but did I just hear you say, Tom, that there was only 6 cameras? Wow. The next person I'd like to call up is somebody that we did a lot of motorcycle rides together with Hector, and that person is Malcolm Williamson. Where is he? Malcolm? There you are, dear. Come on up. Ladies and gentlemen, Malcolm Williamson.
Apparently, my name is Malcolm Williamson. Little known fact, Dave Levison and Hector were the only cameramen available to film the arrival of the Mayflower at Plymouth Rock. So, kudos. I worked with Hector on many, many shows as a writer and weirdly consulting producer, which is odd since no one ever consults me on anything, but anyway. We've heard a lot today about Hector's compassion and his kindness and his enthusiasm, but I don't want to talk about any of that. I want to talk about a little-known aspect of Hector's character, his extraordinary inability to stay on a motorcycle when riding it. We did many road trips together, some of which you saw in the montage earlier. Actually, it turns out, watching that montage, he can't stay on an inflatable crocodile either. So the man has no skills. I saw Hector on the ground, having arrived there from the back of a motorcycle 3 times in my career. The first was on a ride that Brian Reason and Hector and I did to Paso Robles to go wine tasting. And if you're thinking riding motorcycles after wine tasting is not the best idea, I am here to tell you that you're right. Frankly, it's disaster. And we'd stayed in a motel overnight, and Hector and I had parked our bikes next to each other, so we were getting ready to set off. And Hector swung a leg over his, and he swung it a bit higher so he could actually get on it. And he said, I'm going to ride around to the front of the motel. I'll see you around there. So he fired up his bike, and he set off, but he'd forgotten that he left a padlock in the front wheel of a motorcycle. We've all done it. You go about 3 feet, and then the padlock hits the brake block, and you stop dead. And like the sun setting in the west, ladies and gentlemen, Hector slowly plummeted into a bush that we were standing next to, leaving just his feet sticking out. And I'm not ashamed to admit that I laughed. I did. Later that same day, after more wine tasting probably, we were out in the countryside between vineyards, and I went round a corner to see Hector lying in the road, and Brian Reason laughing, ladies and gentlemen. It turned out Hector had shot past the turning we needed to take, was trying to do a U-turn in the road, and the road had a slight drop away in it, and his legs wouldn't reach the pavement, so he just, like the sun setting in the west, ladies and gentlemen, down he went. But his crowning achievement in this area has to be when Brian and Stacy and I and Hector and Alma were on a ride. And we pulled into the Hearst Castle parking lot late in the afternoon. Brian had arrived, managed not to fall off. I arrived, also managed not to fall off. Hector and Alma arrived. And like the sun setting in the west, ladies and gentlemen, slowly they went down. I am still fairly convinced Hector did it deliberately so we could all have a laugh at Alma's expense, which I can't judge. We heard earlier today from Bill that Hector had made him a better person. Hector did not make me a better person, but he sure as hell made my life a hell of a lot better. Ride well, my friend. Thank you.
Okay, we heard about Hector and his long stories. We heard about Hank giving long stories. And now I'd like to introduce you to Dave Plakos. Is Dave Plakos? Is he here? Did he leave? Is Dave around? Oh, here he comes. He's thinking of a story as he's walking up, ladies and gentlemen. This is Dave Plakos. No, but before the sun goes down, please.
Thank you, Davey. Like Malcolm, I am not going to talk about the wonderful things that Hector has done and how we look at him, the glowing remarks people have said. There's a side to Hector that some of you may not know, and that he can be kind of devious, especially to his friends, and I have been the subject of that on occasion on shows. And I just want to share one of these times with you. We were doing a show directed by Jeff Margolis, and it was the American Music Awards. It was probably in the late 80s, early 90s. The stage dressing was mostly very primary colors, very bright, yellows, oranges, pinks, reds, and it was somebody's bright idea that the stage crew, the audio, the A2s on set, and the camera operators, the handheld camera operators, should dress in orange jumpsuits. You've heard this story, I'm sure, some of you. Because we would be seen, they would become part of the set. Big show on ABC, live music special, 3 hours. We thought, okay, we'll go along with this. So, about 15 minutes after dress rehearsal, about 15 minutes before the show, we are handed our orange jumpsuits. And the three people in the front lines were Hector Ramirez, Bill Philbin, and myself. So, we go backstage and we're all back there putting on our full jumpsuits, and we're getting our cameras and we're getting ready to go. Hector and Bill disappear, and I'm standing there, we're just waiting to start the show, and I come out in the very front, and I'm standing in the front line in front of all these stars in a bright orange jumpsuit. I'm standing there with my camera, and in walk Bill and Hector in their show blacks. And I'm just sitting there like this, and they're just going, look, you stupid son. And I'm going, what the, they're going, no, we're not going to do that. So the whole first act of that show is a 6'2", 230-pound cameraman running around on stage in a yellow-orange jumpsuit. And that was only once. That Hector had gotten me several times, but that was one that lives in infamy for me. But I want to close, and I will keep this brief, Davey. I wrote a letter to Hector, or an email to Hector, on November 17th in 2015. And I said, as cynical, childish, and irreverent, and downright ridiculous as I can be, I must say that I was honestly touched by your heartfelt thank yous to the Dancing with the Stars crew yesterday, just prior to the show. Just like me, everyone in that room looks up to you for more years than you probably care to know, and rightfully so. You are the ultimate professional, and you have proven it for 21 seasons on one of the most demanding shows on television. As I had acknowledged earlier that day, Dancing with the Stars is so very Steadicam dependent. It's the signature of the show. You have just as much choreography to your moves as the dancers, and they only have to know one or two routines. Hell, you have to know them all. In my humble opinion, it is you, my friend, that has contributed more to the look, style, and dare I say, success of that show than any other one individual. I've had the privilege of working with you for over 30 years, and you still bring your A game on every production, and again, that's the mark of a true professional and one who is passionate about his work. Well, let me tell you, it shows you are one of the most respected operators in the business for many reasons. and it has been my pleasure to share the PL with you on so many occasions. Only a few on Dancing with the Stars. Could you imagine if I were a regular on that show? Alex would have me buried in the desert. I always knew that I was part of one of the finest TV crews anywhere when my name would appear on the crew sheet with a certain Hector Ramirez. Thanks for always giving it your best and setting the bar so very high and having a few laughs along the way. I know we will continue to work together in the future, as no one is going to let you just pack it in and walk away. So I'll cherish each and every one of those upcoming opportunities. Thank you, Hector. You're one of the big reasons I love my job, and it's true. I loved Hector. He was a true professional, a kind person, very caring, and it's a privilege just to be able to say these words tonight to share with you. To Dana, to Alma, we love you. Thank you. Rest in peace, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Next, we have a video message from Kenny Ehrlich. So take a look.
Hello, everybody. When I first moved out here in 1976 to do the Tony Orlando and Dawn Rainbow Hour, I met some of the most amazing people in the world. Some of them were in our studio to do Tony Orlando. Some of them were next door doing Sonny and Cher. We called them Murderers Row, but unlike the Yankees Murderers Row of Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Tony Lazzeri, and others, ours were Dave Levison, Larry Hyder, Bill Philbin, Dean Hall, Hank Geving, Scoop Guerin, and a guy named Hector Ramirez. They were all wonderful, and you knew that when you walked into a studio to do a show, from that moment to almost the rest of my career, that if they were there, or some of them or all of them were there, you were in good shape because they knew it all and they'd protect you. And they were really there to protect you, particularly Hector. Hector, like all of those guys, wound up with nicknames from a guy named Walter Miller. It might be indecent to do it, but I can't do this today without calling back the name that Walter called Hector. So if there are any sensitive people here, block your ears. But here's to Rectum. Rectum was Hector, Hector was Rectum, and forevermore, the guys called him that, we called him that, Walter called him that, and the most wonderful sound in the world was when Walter Miller over the headset would say, "Move your ass, Rectum, get to that fucking shot before it's too late." And Hector got it all the time. I hate to see Hector go, I hate to see any of these guys go, but it's a tribute to all of us. Whether you were a director or producer, whatever you did on a show, it was because of what they did that people walked around with Emmys, walked around with awards, and just felt good about what they did. Hector, miss you a lot. Thank you for everything you did, and thank you to all the rest of you guys who could keep doing it. He influenced generations of camera guys after them, but there will never be the same. There will never be the like of Hector Ramirez again. Thank you. I hope everyone there is remembering the way that I do, and I know you are. Thank you.
And now I'd like to bring up Helena. Helena Jackson.
Hello, my name is Helena Jackson. I'm a camera operator. The first time I met Hector was in 1989. I was on tour with the Rolling Stones Steel Wheels Tour, and Louis J. brought in his A-list crew to do the pay-per-view show. And that was the first time, and I talked with Hector, and I mean, at that point, I wanted to work on those kinds of shows. 20 years later, when I moved to Los Angeles, Hector and I worked on several shows together, and mostly America's Got Talent. When Russell Norman, the director of America's Got Talent, had just come over from England, and that was his first show here, and we were all in a camera meeting, and Hector was a little late. And when Hector came in, the first thing Russell said was, "Hey, the silver beaver." And it was like, "No, silver fox, silver fox." And when Hector retired from Steadicam, Russell put him in the back. I still shoot the judges for America's Got Talent. And Hector and I were the only original camera operators on that show for 17 seasons. And so Hector came back there, and you all know that Hector is a storyteller. He's a great storyteller. And though I heard the stories over and over and over again, I listened to each and every one as if I had never heard them before. Hector was one of a kind, very kind-hearted, very knowledgeable, and artistry. He was the best. I will miss him terribly, especially when we come back to the 18th season of America's Got Talent. He will definitely be missed. Alma, Bill, Dana, you are so very, very lucky to have that man in your life. So thank you for all the people that came here today and watching it and streaming it on video. This is Hector Ramirez, the man and the legend. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. Next, I'd like to call Paul Miller. Paul? Thank you, Paul. Of the Miller clan.
Thanks, David. Well, Ken Ehrlich stole my big finish, but I just want to tell you how much Hector meant to me. And I'm sure I speak for all the directors in the room who say that when they put together, when I say that when you put together a staff list, you talk to your line producer and they say, who do you want on camera? First name that I always blurted out was, see if Hector's available. Whether we were in Nashville or the shows for 25 years that I did with Hector in Washington, on the lawn of the Capitol, where it might be 110 degrees one year and pouring rain the next year. It didn't matter. Hector was there. Hector was always on his game, and Hector was always passionate about the work that he did. And watching these videos this afternoon, I can see that the passion he had for his family was matched by the passion that he had for his work. And that's the true definition of a man to me, is somebody who can find that balance in his life to put his family first and never, but still have passion and meaning for the work that you do. So all of us directors and all of you on the crew who have worked with Hector are blessed to have had that experience and to have had his passion on the shows that we did. And I know my dad and my sister, who's back here today, absolutely loved Hector. And my dad used to say, I just love the guys. The guys are everything to me. And when my dad turned 80 years old, he was still doing the Grammy Awards. And so I sent a crew down to make a little video about him for his 80th birthday. And the crew interviewed everybody working on the show and followed my dad around for the last week of rehearsals before the live show. And he went around, and they would all say the same thing about my dad. Well, you know, he had a nickname for all of us. And Eastwood, who was here, he said, he called me Little Shit. Little Shit, that was his nickname for him. And Philbin would lean right into the camera and say, he called me Nose. I don't know why, but he called me Nose. And then it cut to Hector, and he said, he called me Rectum. I'm not sure why he called me Rectum, but that's what he called me. And they all had, they just had mutual respect and love for each other. And, you know, as any of you guys, any of us who have been in the, you know, in the excitement and the pressure of a live television show know that we're all depending on each other, you know, whether you're the director or the writer, the producer, the performer, or the camera operator, it's a team effort. And we all depend on each other, and we all need to know that we've got the best crew and the best people we can possibly get in every one of those positions. And Hector was certainly on the top of that list. So from my family to Hector's family, we love you, and we will miss him. And just want you to know that how much he meant to us. So thank you.
Thank you, Paul. At this time, we are opening up the mic to anybody that would like to come up and share a story that they have with Hector. If there's anybody that wants to come on up at this point in the room. And I see, yeah. Come on up. I'm sorry I can't see, but come on up.
Hi, y'all. I'm Jimmy. I've been Hector and Alice's neighbor for maybe 25 years. It's a interesting dynamic, neighbors. They're moving in and you look out your window and you wonder what they're going to be like. Are they loud? Are they going to be nice? And it's somewhat like family, where we don't choose our neighbors, but it might be one of the longest relationships in our lives and become very significant. And it's quite special just to be neighbors. But when it evolves into something more than just a neighbor, and it becomes friendship and love, it is most special. My garage and Hector and Alma's garage are directly across the street from each other. And I work in my garage, and I'm always doing my projects, my work. And it was always very, very bonding to look across, open my garage and to see Hector in his garage and working on some project that Alma has given him. When time would go and Hector was not in the garage, I would talk to Alma and say, "You need to give Hector another project. We need to keep moving." A month ago, we had a lot of rain, and I hadn't been going into the garage. And then we had a nice weekend with some nice sunlight, and I felt that I needed to get into the garage. I needed to work with my hands. It's very therapeutic for me. But I've been kind of resisting, because I knew to open that garage. And I pushed through, but the moment I pushed open my garage, it was very emotional for me. And to realize That's one great thing that I will miss. To not be able to open that garage and see Heck and go, hey, Heck, what you working on? That'll be a great loss for me. It's become, I've confided in you guys. You guys have shown me love. I've watched Dana, this guy, grow up. I mean, is he not a Clooney, Elvis look-alike? Come on, and then this guy right here is the most gorgeous guy. Alma, I've admired your marriage, your relationship with Hector. I don't know how people do it. I don't know how people have these long relationships. It is just a beautiful thing. They are such a great team. Alma directs. She's insightful. She's got a great eye. She knows how it's supposed to look and how it should be done. And Hector accommodates. And he was very good. He was very, very good at what he did. And sometimes he needed help, and he'd come over and he'd ask me for help, and he'd call and say, Jimmy, it's your pesky neighbor, and enough of that. Because a few years ago, what I realized is when somebody asks you for help, it's a gift. And it is one of the greatest gifts that anybody could ever give me, is to ask me to help and for you to feel that you can help somebody. It's just a beautiful thing. And then what I realized is how Hector had, he did it so naturally. He would call. If I didn't pick up, a minute later, I don't think the ring in the phone had stopped, that he's calling again. And if I didn't pick up then, he was at the front door. He was just so free. I am not. And I started, when I realized what a gift it was that he was giving me, I realized that this is something that I needed to be better at. To give you guys the gift that you have given me, and to ask you to help me, which for me is much more difficult. But I took it as that this is something I need to be more like Hector and return that gift. So 6-7 months ago, I was needing to take down a ceiling fan and replace it or clean it or repaint it. And I felt insecure to get on a ladder. And I make my living on a ladder. But I'm getting older, and I'm realizing that, I can't afford an accident and anything can happen, and I've been very fortunate. And I thought, you know what? Call Hector. Jim, call Hector. But I don't need, I'll call Hector. Just have him come and spot you. Baby steps, Jim. So I did. I said, could you just come over and just be on it, just be there just in case, I fall on my ass. And he came over. We took down the fan. Now, we didn't know. He knew. He knew that he had just been diagnosed. And he didn't say anything. And then I think it was the following week that we learned. And then when the fan was ready to put back up, I wanted him to be there with me. Again, to support me if I fell, or hand me a screw if I dropped a screw or something. But it was not the time, it was past the time. And I'm sorry that I didn't start that sooner to give him that gift. Because it is truly a gift that was dear to me. You've always been honest with me, advice through things in life. I've lost friends, buddies, but this may impact me more than any other loss. Just by way of being that guy across the street. And what we take for granted about the comings and goings of people and this and that, and their old garage door would squeak and you knew when they were in or out, and now the new garage door doesn't squeak, so I don't know when you come and go anymore. But it's those little things sometimes that bring us, and then what we realize we'll miss. I love you guys. I don't know if you arguably might know me better than anybody else in my life. And that means a lot. It means a lot that people know us in our life. It's a beautiful thing here today to see how many people knew Hector. And while most here knew him professionally, I didn't know Hector professionally. He wasn't as professional to me. He was my neighbor who became my friend. I'll miss you, buddy. Love you guys.
That was beautiful, Jimmy. Is there anybody else that would like to come up at this time? Come on up.
Hi, my name is Ken Gretzky. This man is my uncle. Apologies if getting my thoughts together, I wasn't planning on saying anything, but I wanted to speak to his generosity, his kindness, and his love of family. In January of 1994, my brother and I lost our father. About 2 weeks later, Northridge earthquake hit, and everything was in shambles. as many of you know. My uncle drove the freeways, the streets to get to us to make sure we were okay. Knowing that there was just my mom and 2 children in the house. That was the kind of man that my uncle was. Another story that I wanted to share was my uncle always wanted to make sure that we were included in trips. So there was one winter, he wanted to take us to New York. New York is a big part of our lives because we're big Mets fans. So, but we had never been. And we were going to go to New York in December to get to see Christmas in December, New York during Christmas. The lights, the smells, the snow. And anyone that's been on a trip with my uncle knows that it's very scheduled. You had to be up at a certain time, be ready to go, breakfast, and you're going to be walking a lot, and you got to stay on schedule. You needed a vacation after the vacation. But 2 particular incidents from this trip was the World Trade Center. It was 1997-ish. We were standing in line to go through the metal detectors to take the long elevator ride up. And I looked down, and for some reason, there's a metal nut on the floor. And I don't remember if I touched my brother or my cousin. I said, "Watch this." And I kicked the nut, and it rolled. And sure enough, stopped right underneath the metal detector, right when my uncle was going through the metal detector. And so it went off, and they made him back up and go through again, and they didn't understand why it was going off. And so anyways, you had to take off all your stuff, put it through the metal detector, and all the commotion, we lost track of what was going on, trying to figure out why the metal detector was going off. Anyway, so we got our stuff. We got through. We took the long elevator ride up to the top. And we're at the top of the World Trade Center, looking over New York. And we're like, let's take a picture. And so we're all standing there waiting for the picture. And Uncle Hector goes for his camera. Sure enough, we left it down at the bottom of the lobby of the World Trade Center because of the whole metal detector thing. We forgot to grab it. So I will have those memories in my mind and in my heart, but we do not have any photos of that trip. The second part of this trip was going to see Shea Stadium. And Shea Stadium is where the Mets used to play their home games. And it being December, there was no baseball. So the best we could do was just go visit the stadium and see the outside. For my brother and I, Shea Stadium and the Mets were a connection to our father for us. So just getting to see it from the outside was a tremendous experience and something that we'll cherish forever. However, that wasn't good enough for Uncle Hector. He saw a security guard around by the entrance, He said, hold on, I'll be right back. Goes over, talks to him for a couple minutes, and then waves us over. We got a private tour. Of the stadium, of the dugout. I'll never forget. We got in an elevator. The security guard goes, come with me. We got in an elevator. We took it up floor flights. Elevator doors opened. The light was shining down. And we walked out. It was the most magnificent thing I've ever seen. I know. It was the first time I'd seen Shea Stadium. Wasn't planning on getting to see it. And like I said, we got a full tour. And got to stand on the mound. Got to sit in the dugout. And like the World Trade Center, Shea Stadium is no longer there. But the memories will live forever in my mind and in my heart. And it's because of my uncle. Thank you.
That was a beautiful story.
I think we've come to the end of what has been a fantastic tribute to Hector, Alma, Bill, Dana, family. I mean, it's been fantastic. I know they thank you, and we thank you very much. And one more thing.
I think we should have everybody stand up, and we're going to give Hector a standing, a
Beautiful round of applause.
round of applause.
And standing ovation.
Standing ovation for Hector.
Thank you, everybody, and we guess we continue the schmooze and enjoy everybody's company and drive safely when you're going home, please.
And thank you for all the crew.
Right, from
Everybody
CBS, fantastic.
CBS, that everybody that put this on, we cannot express our gratitude enough on behalf of Hector.
Thank you.